And welcome back. Hi guys, here, Tropical Nomad every Monday, 6:30. Speak Up Monday. So Speak Up Monday, as you know, have been going for about 3 years. This is episode number 198. So we are 2 away from episode 200. As I mentioned, it's been 3 years, and it's about unity and diversity. It's about people inspire people. Now, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, as you know, we're here in Bali, means unity and diversity, in case you're wondering, what does that look like? And for the best viewing experience, I would head to YouTube, Speak Up Monday, or to our Facebook group, which is Speak Up Monday on Facebook group, okay? So you've got those particular places to get a really great viewing experience. So now, as you know, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick. I'm your guide. And what do I do? So I help inbound tourism operators and tourism boards maximize inbound tourism. So they call me the architect, the tourism architect. So that's what I do. Now this show is about showing you the sorts of incredible people, like our brother here, Benjamin, that we have here in Bali. And it gives you an insight into what life is like here. Because as you may know, Bali has undergone a change, a metamorphosis of such. A different dimension has opened up. A dimension of remote worker, a dimension of startups, a dimension of incubators, accelerators, a dimension of incredibly gifted, talented people creating social capital, creating opportunities that help to impact the rest of the world, including blockchain. So this is the new Bali that we're talking about. So yeah, if you're wondering what Bali is like, just look down or look through my feed if you're watching on IG, and you'll get a really good understanding of what's happening. So tonight, on to our guest, Benjamin. I'm loving the t-shirt, Consciousness.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Yeah, so look, this is Benjamin. This is your second time on the show, right?
Second time. I think I came last year, or probably a bit more
than a
year
ago. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it was about a year and a half ago.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah, and New World Together. So New World Together, you are the founder and executive producer, and in a minute you're going to explain exactly what it does. But my read of it is, how the humanity, right, can get an understanding of what its actions have contributed to the environment and the world at large on many different issues, from sustainability all the way through to the human experience. And not only have you done an incredible study in the time that I've seen you since last time, but you're able to articulate what the challenge is, what we can do, and possible solutions for the future, which I absolutely love. So Benjamin, welcome to the show, and start off perhaps by letting us know in your own words, New World Together. What is it about, and where did the idea emerge from?
So New World Together, in one sentence, it's an interdisciplinary research and education platform pioneering global sustainability with human solutions. How did New World Together started? Well, it's started with my own journey. I'm coming from the corporate world, and from a young age I noticed that something was not doing as it was not really sustainable in that world. I got really concerned about, for example, climate change, but also about the destruction of our planetary ecosystems, plastic pollution, biodiversity loss, and inequalities. And I had a feeling that the corporate culture that I could observe, this constant race for short-term profits and unlimited accumulation of capital and compulsive growth, was related with this problem that I was observing. And so it became a little bit, I was very successful in my corporate career, so I had incentive not to quit it. So I dealt with what I would call cognitive dissonance for quite some time. But after a few years, and me really, seeing what power, money, and status could offer me, I realized that it became unsustainable for me to know that I was part of the problem and to stay there. So I decided to quit. What followed was an intense journey of transformation. I can give you some detail. But,
we'll dive into that. Don't worry about that. You keep on going.
And ultimately, New World Together. And so as I started New World Together, I had already some realizations, some insights. I knew notably that if we want to deal with the crisis ahead of us, I call it a global sustainability crisis, we have to come together. And so I started as an activist trying to bring people together to address the global sustainability crisis. And then I started bumping into walls, and I was like, damn, what's wrong? Why people are so reluctant to the idea of coming together to address our big issues? And that's when slowly it started to turn into research, because I started to study the nature of this invisible wall that was keeping us separated and unable to deal with our biggest world issues. And later in a research and education platform, because I realized that there is no quick fix to this problem. We need to be more aware, we need collective sense-making, and for that we need the right knowledge, which means the right education. And so that's how slowly we became a research and education platform.
So I get that, that for us to acknowledge what's going on, for us to become part of the solution, not part of the problem, education is the way to go, or re-education, right, is the way to go, because we're often brought up with a certain level of understanding or non-understanding, let's call it that, and it's tough for us to come to the same view that you have without having that gap filled. So I remember, I first met you a couple of years ago at Tomorrow Gallery, here in Canggu, and who I met was this, because you're a tall guy just like me, and you were angry, maybe not angry, but you were very passionate, right? And I found that your passion was palpable, but at the same time it was difficult to relate to, because it felt like it was coming through the filter of anger. And then I've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years, how you've grown, created this incredible movement, and then been able to put educative practices in place, structures and strategies in place, to give people the education and information to catch up to where you are now. So, you mentioned before a term that some people know what it means, many others will not. So cognitive dissonance, big word, sounds great. What is it?
Cognitive dissonance is where there is a contradiction between, for example, some belief that we hold, that serve us, and parts of reality. And that contradiction creates an inner state of discomfort, generally anxiety. What it tends to generate is a disconnection from whatever disturbing part of reality is triggering that cognitive dissonance.
Got it. So cognitive dissonance, as a summary, could be said as, something that you don't want to see, right?
Something that you see that creates a disturbing feeling because it challenges your beliefs.
Yeah, great. And then as a way to deal with it, you just disconnect. It's like you don't see it anymore. You don't want to see it anymore.
You basically disconnect, and it's quite interesting because it's an unconscious mechanism of denial. We disconnect from the part of reality or from the information that give us, that generate in us that cognitive dissonance.
Got it.
And by the way, very often the core belief that might be that is challenged could be unconscious.
Yeah.
So it's a very subtle and unconscious process, but that leads us sometimes to live disconnected from parts of reality, and often parts of reality that we need to face.
Okay, so then for you, denial. So if I say denial in this sense of cognitive dissonance, so where was the denial for you, if there was one? As you said, the corporate career, right? So where was that denial for you, if there was any?
Oh, there was one. Is that basically I was living a very comfortable corporate life. Again, power, money, status, and everything that comes with it. And so having to face that I was part of a problem that is existential, I mean, part of a way of functioning that is not sustainable, which means that it represents a threat to our civilization, to the future of humanity, was really hard to digest. And so what it will make me feel, it will make me feel really depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, and guilty. But not guilty because I feel, because I'm part of the problem. Guilty because I'm not enjoying my corporate career as I should. And so basically at that moment, I had two options. The state of denial, okay, I don't care, this is not my problem. Climate change, deforestation, biodiversity loss, growing inequalities is none of my problem. I have nothing to do with this. Let the government deal with it. Okay, that was denial. That worked a little bit, but there was another part of me, more conscious, that was like, look at what you're doing. You're constantly thinking about profits, growth. You don't pay attention to the human and environmental impact that you're having, and you know that is not good. You know that your contribution to this world is not positive, it's negative. And so, of course, the corporation also provide narratives to make you feel good. Okay, we are creating jobs, we are serving a customer, etc. Well, you know, this kind of narrative, they are feeling good, they make us feel good, but they kind of deny the other side, the shadow side. And so somehow I'm not somebody who's good at denial. I tend to like to be real. I tend to like to face reality. And so that's why that created more and more discomfort, and that ultimately I had to make a choice, a conscious choice. I kind of had two paths ahead of me. I could see a path in the corporate world, ending up as a senior manager, secretary, car, luxury hotels, etc. I was like, yeah, sounds good. But how am I going to live with the guilt? How am I going to live with the feeling that I'm part of a problem? Like I'm taking advantage of a system that's dysfunctional. And there was another path, which was a leap of faith, because I didn't know where it was leading at the time. And so I tried to compromise for a while. It just got me more depressed and feeling more meaningless. And ultimately, what happened? What was the big trigger? I went to a meditative retreat, and I was kind of pushing a button, and then started the whole transformation process, and that led ultimately 1.5 years later to the creation of New World Together.
Got it. So just to clarify a couple of words here. So one was cognitive dissonance, we explained that. Existential. So you use the word existential. Some people here may not be aware of what that means. So existential crisis facing humanity. How would you describe that?
So basically, when we speak about a problem of sustainability, it has mainly become a buzzword, but it's not really a buzzword. It's a vital need. Because what's not sustainable is what's ultimately going to collapse. So if we speak about a way of functioning that's not sustainable, we are speaking about a way of functioning that either is going to change or is going to collapse. Same goes for an economy, same goes for a civilization. So sustainability is existential. Not being sustainable as a civilization, as a species, is an existential risk. It is sacrificing today or future. Basically, not being sustainable as a species means that we are now, our way of functioning now is sacrificing the future of the next generations. So that's existential. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, a very important subject that is misunderstood and underrated.
T-shirt, consciousness. What's behind that?
So consciousness, behind consciousness is our ability to understand, notably, many things, but notably the ability to understand the consequences of our choices and actions for the future. It's also being self-aware so that we make conscious choice rather than choices that are coming out of unconscious programs that are completely outdated. So by the way, before you spoke about New World Together being about re-education, I would almost like to say it's almost about deprogrammation. It's about getting out of the programs in order to find that, so that we can make conscious choices that serve us, but not only us, also the rest of the world. Because everything is interdependent and interconnected. So if my success is coming at the expense of the rest of the world, this is a non-sustainable way of functioning. Yeah, I spoke a lot there. Opened a lot of doors. Okay, anyway.
Oh, look, you have a lot to say, Benjamin. You always have. It's good. So, all right, so we've seen a little bit now. Corporate background, we're in a place where you understood that, hey, the cognitive dissonance is at work here. I'll try and toe the line and compromise. That didn't work. Meditation retreat brought this button being pushed even more, and then you realize, man, I can't do this anymore. Okay, so New World Together was formed. But then at that time, what were the main attributes and ideology behind New World Together then? Not now, but then.
So when we started, it was to unite the human species so that we can face this existential risk and overcome them. Because one of the things that I noticed very early on is that, okay, I was mainly focusing on the ecological aspect, right? And so here, I don't speak about climate change, I speak about planetary overshoot. And climate change becomes one of the symptoms of planetary overshoot. What is a planetary overshoot? Is when humanity's ecological footprint is higher than Earth's biocapacity. Okay? And so I see 5 types of symptoms mainly. Climate change is one, but you also have biodiversity loss, pollution of ground, air, soil, ecosystem destruction, and overconsumption of resources, right? And so what we found is that, okay, if on this planet, as in the current paradigm, we are all in competition with one another for the extraction and accumulation of resources, there's no way we can integrate our planetary limits. There's no way we can deal with the planetary overshoot. This is a guaranteed tragedy of the commons. And so our idea was, okay, we are going to tell people that and show them that we need to unite, and we're going to create a movement that's going to place Earth above nations, humanity above profit, and the universe above our beliefs. And I was very naive. I thought people would just go on board because that sounds really good, right? Who wouldn't like to join a movement like that? But then when I started my activism, I realized that, wow, actually I was, again, bumping into this invisible wall. And I was like, there's something else there. There's more than that. It's just not that easy, right? And so that's where I started researching what's this invisible wall? What makes people so afraid of that change? And so that led to the whole other crunchy part that all the findings that I need to share.
We'll get to that crunchy part. So that's how you started, right? Yes. With this ideology behind it.
Yes.
Now, that was some years ago.
Yes.
Right? So now, where are you now, and what has changed, if anything?
So, first of all, I don't consider New World Together as an activist organization anymore. What has changed is that I realized that the problem that we are facing is simple, but deep. And that it's going to take time. And it's going to take the right type of knowledge, the right type of sense-making, the right type of innovation to be dealt with. And so that's why now we became a research and education platform. So a big part of the work last year, notably thanks to COVID, was to put together the findings that we have, really study the subject. What is it with us humans that make us self-destructive? What is it with us humans that keep us afraid of each other?
You know, like, there might be people watching now, right? And there's maybe two questions in their head. They can see that you still have the passion, brother, that you still have the drive, right? And I love it. Like I said earlier on, like, I think what's happened is that, and this is not to downplay or upplay or side play, if there's even such a word, you know, but there feels like there's more of a maturity within you from the person that I met a year and a half, 2 years ago. Right? Again, not downplaying it, not upplaying it, not side playing it, just calling it out for what it is. So maybe there's two types of person here watching. One would be, you know, how do I do that, right? What qualities would I require to have success in a similar area to what you're doing now? That's one of the questions. And then the second one of the questions could be, all right, but why should we listen to you?
Oh.
So answer either one in whichever order you like.
So I'm going to start with the qualities that are needed, right, to be able to be part of the solution, let's say. In New World Together, we call it, we have these three pillars. First one is self-knowledge. Knowing who I am, being aware of myself, of what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, and what I really want to do. Right? Because the last thing you want to do is like pressuring yourself into doing something that's not for you. Right? So that's the first one. Second one is sense making. Sense making is the ability to make sense of my inner and my outer reality and to give back meaning to our individual and collective experiences. Another fundamental. Number three is what I call future design. Future design is the ability to foresee potential futures, to choose the one that seemed the most convenient, and to be able to act in order to optimize the chances for that future to be manifested. So that's the three combo. If you're missing one, it's going to be hard to be effective on the other.
Right. Why should I listen to you?
I've spent thousands of hours focusing on the root cause of the problem that all humanity is facing today. Whether we want to see it or not, we know, I think all the people to whom I talk know that the way we function today is not sustainable. I haven't met anyone who say, no, it's sustainable. We can continue like this forever, everything is fine. Never. Whether people believe in climate change or not, etc., I have never met somebody like that. I'm sure they are some, but not many. Right. So I've spent thousands of hours studying and uncovering the root cause of the problem. Trust me, I've been, in my corporate career, I ended up as an expert consultant in system and organization because my skills was to identify the root cause of the problem and to deal with them. Because what I've discovered, and I'm a little bit lazy, I don't like to do 10 times the same thing. I discovered that if I was only treating a symptom of a problem, it will keep reoccur or remanifest one way or the other. On the other hand, once I had identified the root cause and treated properly, I would have a decisive solution, a definitive solution. And so I've been spending thousands of hours studying the root cause of human destructive patterns. And so either I'm delusional, it's up to you to decide, or we are at the core of the problem that we all face on this planet, and therefore at the core of the solution. So I think, yeah, you could give it a try and decide for yourself if I'm just a crazy guy or if actually, maybe there's stuff to look at there.
So that answers the question of, why we should listen to you, right? I love your answer, by the way. So then the next question that pops in is that, so you've spent thousands of hours researching this. The career that you had before was all about discovering the root cause. You mentioned, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm not, it's up to you to decide. Love that too. How do we know that what you've been studying for all of these hours is true for us as well as for you?
Well, if it's only true for you, if you can see it by yourself. I'm going to speak about an outer reality that is connected with an inner reality. And you can feel the things I can talk about.
If you don't, then it's not your truth, and that's fine, right? But I can tell you that most people who spend the time to look at this, they feel it, they recognize it. And maybe we have some mistake. Maybe some of our findings can be improved. I'm very happy to have a feedback. I don't claim to have the absolute truth. I'm not, omniscient. I'm a human being just like you. So subjective, relative, limited. But I think our findings can really help us to forge new pathway for better futures by looking inward, looking at our problem inwards, rather than trying only to solve them outward through technology or whatever comes with it.
So in a minute, we're going to move on to this study that you did, right? And why did you do it, and the things around it. So here's one of the things. I'm doing a course at the moment, and one of the things that came out, right, was that about knowing thyself. Okay, it was put forward that there are 3 ways to know yourself. One is to go within, which I'm a big believer and a big fan of, right? Go within. But what's been proven is that that isn't always reliable because we have our own bias and our own dissonance around that, right? Okay. Number 2 is to ask other people's opinion about us. Now, that's probably in certain senses better than number 1, but a lot of the time as human beings, we tend to ask the people that we know won't give us a hard time, right? Won't tell us like the brutal, hard truth because like, I don't want to hear that. Number 3 is about analysis, and I'm trying to remember that it's analysis of your past habits, results, and ways of being, right? So in other words, it's evidence-based. Right? And it's interesting because even as simple as that sounds, even just thinking about it, I know that I've been completely number 1. Right? And look, sometimes we may get it right. Awesome, right? But a lot of the time, people are running around doing, I don't only use right and wrong, I will in this particular scenario because it's easier to explain that way, but people are running around doing the things and focused on the things that aren't gifts for them, that aren't skills for them. They may have some success, but it's like, if you use number 3, that analysis of evidence over time, right? And you can pick it out, like he was saying that this kid, as a kid, right, he was put in front of a classroom of people and he just fell on his feet. And it turns out this guy became a public speaker actually at the end of it, right? Became a public speaker and when he looks back over his life, you can see all of these different experiences that align along the same line of expertise, and then decided to do that, right, and had success with it. So if I ask you the question of if there was a line for you of consciousness, right, in the example that I just gave you, what would that be for you when you look back over your life and see the evidence-based analysis of who Benjamin is, and what he is very good at?
That's a difficult question, but first of all, I'd like to say that the 3 ways that you describe are complementary. It's not which one is the best. It's like we need to use the 3 of them together. For me, what really leads me to a higher level of self-knowledge is truthfulness. Is being honest about what I think, expressing what I feel, what I think. And it might be, completely out of line, but when I express it, I allow myself to have a real feedback. And so to realign myself and to get to know myself better. So truthfulness for me is key. The ability to express ourselves with as much authenticity as possible, without trying to seek for external validation. And trust me, it's a journey. I'm not saying that I get it all sorted. But this has really allowed me to expand my consciousness because I could learn from my mistakes, and also to know who I was.
Cool, brother. So let's get on to your research. So before we get into the meat of it, so if you can let us know, firstly, what was the research looking to find? So what was the objective of the research? How long did it take you? And what are the benchmarks within it? In any particular order.
So the objective was to understand the root cause of human destructive patterns. Where is this coming from, and how it can be addressed decisively. Very simple, right? What makes us behave in ways that are not sustainable? How can we fix this? It took me, I think it took me a lifetime because, I mean, as far as I remember, I've been asking myself questions. I just didn't know that those answers existed. Right? I've been learning in school that, oh, you know, these are questions without answers, and we should just accept our ignorance. But it was not a part of me that was still seeking, you know, and so when I was still in my corporate career, I would watch documentaries, and it would, like, you know, trigger me from inside, you know, deep in my core. And so I don't know, I don't count the hours. I know that since 4 years now, I do it full time, right? So this is like my life dedication. It's a bit too much sometimes, but that's what I'm passionate about. And I think that's how I can really have an impact. The benchmark, I wouldn't know how to benchmark the research.
So with benchmarks, I mean, let me make it a little bit different. So with benchmarks, you know, so what were the main topics or subtopics of investigation on the way to achieve the broader objective?
Right. So first of all was a global understanding of the problem of sustainability. Not thinking plastic, not thinking deforestation, not thinking overfishing, seeing the holistic aspect, including inequalities, financial debts, cultural aspects, etc., etc. That was the first part. Second was defining the commonalities between all these factors of unsustainability. So that's where we started to, you know, define human patterns. What are these human patterns? The third one was what trigger these human patterns? Where are they coming from? What are they made of? The fourth one was what are the nature of the denial mechanism that stop us from facing this situation and react it in coherent ways to it at the collective level. 5, there was collective mental disorder. I'm not talking about mental illness as psychiatry understands it, but more like what stands between us and our collective ability to make sense of reality, to have a consensus on reality. Why are we all into these conflicting beliefs and not able to have a consensus on the world we share in common and what, you know, where we come from, etc. Another aspect was, another key subject was our creative power. How do we create, how we human beings are the creator of our society, and how society ends us creating us back. And are we making a conscious use of our creative power or not? And then number 7 is once we deal with all these issues, what do we become? What's on the other side? So that's basically a lot.
That's a great deal. Now, where can people find it? If they want to look at it, we've got a while to go, but if people watching now say, okay, those milestones, those points sound really interesting. I've heard you already. I'm interested by you. I'm interested in what you're doing. Love to find this research. Where can they find it?
So for now, and I'm sorry because I'm still building the platform, we just renewed the website. You can already register through the website, so www.newworldtogether.com. Very soon I will make sure that from there you can access the summary of our findings through PDF with some key infographics. And aside from that, I have So I'm preparing a bunch of courseworks, presentation. There is a 1 hour 30 presentation, there is a 4 hour conference, and there is a 3 days bootcamp or retreat in which you access in detail everything that I'm talking about. And so all of that is being prepared right now. It's going to be released by the end of the year, if everything goes as planned, and I think it will because we are pretty close to it. So yeah, it's coming.
Right. Okay. So newworldtogether.com.
Correct.
All right. Good. So of these 7 great milestones that you mentioned, right? So if I ask you, what 3 things, 3 things, I think I can't speak, 3 things, right, surprised you most about your findings?
That's a really good one. A lot, because having these findings completely shifted the way I see myself, others, and the world. The first one is that there's I will call it like that, an infinite intelligence bonding us all in this universe. It's not just the brain. I mean, intelligence is all over the place, and obviously we're still blind to it. But we are not the only intelligent species in this universe. I mean, that universe is, the intelligence of the universe is just like completely unbelievable, and far over anything that we can do as humans. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I've grown hearing and being taught that we human beings are evil. We are a destructive species by nature, and that this is just the way we are. Absolutely untrue. We are simply a species that has learned to survive in certain ways, that used to be adapted, because for hundreds of thousands of years we've evolved with very low level of technology, and we just came to a point where we dominate the surface of our planet with relatively high tech. And so our old survival instinct that was very fit for purpose back in the days is now becoming self-destructive. Nothing wrong with that. This is not who we are. This is a survival instinct that is in fact deep-rooted in traumatic experiences. So actually what I found is that we are very sensitive beings, but we've learned to numb ourselves because we've been through so much pain during evolution. And now it's time to be a little bit more sensitive, because being numb to ourselves, one another, is not serving us well in our times. So that's the second one. We are not as bad as we think. We're actually very sensitive, just numb because we're still traumatized. That's a big one. It's a big one, and I could that's a game changer, right? Because also in terms of solutions to deal with our problems, that's a game changer. Number 3, we have so much untapped potential, infinite potentials. We are so far to know the extent of our powers, because as we've been numbing ourselves to numb our pain, we've also repressed our power. And so there's so much to untap by facing our problems and dealing with what is broken within us, what hasn't been healed yet. There's so much to untap for the future. It's just mind-blowing. So those are 3 findings that have completely changed the way I see us and I see our potential futures.
Why? What's the deeper reason of why you're doing this, man?
Well, because I for a very long time, I felt like sitting in a train that's taking speed and taking speed and taking speed, and knowing deep inside myself that that train is going to crash. That train is insane, it's going to crash. And knowing that, I don't want to be in a crashing train. So I wanted to find a way to slow down the train so that it doesn't crash. And for that, I knew that I had to uncover the root cause of the problem. Because doing symptom treatment, was always I had a choice. Okay, what do I pick? I'm going to fight plastics, or I'm going to fight like deforestation and try to protect the orangutan, or do I go for? And I always felt like, but this is not. It's not going to make a difference. So I was like, I wish I could knew the root cause. And back then I didn't know them, but my journey took me to at least having a point of view where, for me, yeah, it's clear.
And two questions. So one is people watching, right, feeling you, feeling your energy and feeling your vibe and where you're at, right? So it's a bit of a leading question, but what the heck, just pops in. So is this something that you feel you were called to do, pushed to do, or pulled to do?
Well, all of that. But not knowing at the time, there was just signs back then. Again, I'm talking about something which was like an overwhelming hyper object before, right? And so I was like feel pulled to do something, and to do something where I could optimize my ability to make an impact, but not knowing what it was.
So pulled, got it.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you. So 3 biggest challenges when it comes to the research that you did. What were the 3, or just 3 of the biggest challenges that you faced? And how long did it take you to do the whole thing from start to finish?
I don't think it's finished.
Yeah.
So I think it's ongoing work. The main challenges is that this is speaking about something that most people try to avoid. And so it's a bit like not being very trendy, not choosing an easy path in the way that what I'm doing doesn't have much sex appeal for most people at this stage, right? It is more like some kind of weird stuff, and like we don't know where this is going, and we don't necessarily want to think about it, talk about it, face it. So that has been one of the main challenge, right? Going into a direction where there's almost no one. It's also an opportunity, right? Because we come with these unique findings, which I think are really groundbreaking and breakthrough, and I believe it will take time, but ultimately more people understand their value. So that was a main challenge. But with this challenge comes the challenge of financing, right? It's like today, if I was like giving technological solutions, like I think it would be much easier because it doesn't challenge the status quo. Our findings are extremely subversive. They challenge the status quo. They challenge the dominant belief. So that's a big one. So it required to be cautious in the way we come with it, because the aim is not to make enemies, is not to create more division, is to create unity. The third one is the personal, going into this shadow aspect of our existence takes a toll, an emotional toll, a mental toll.
Give us an experience of the emotional, mental toll that's taken on you.
Okay, so at the beginning of the journey, in 2017, I've been institutionalized in psychiatric hospital 4 times. That's how much of a toll it is. As I could not deal with this information. It was too overwhelming emotionally and mentally. And you say when you saw me first, there was more anger at the time. Like I just wanted to fight everyone. That's the toll. No, I've learned to integrate these insights and the emotions that it was releasing. Well, ultimately, I released them, so then you get more peaceful. But that's the type of toll. So I reassure everyone, like I had to go through this because I didn't have landmarks. I didn't have a way. Good news is that once on the other side, there's a way. As you don't have to go through insanity. You can actually face this and get sense making because there is on the other side.
That's powerful, man. You know, I had completely forgotten about that. Because I remember in our first interview we spoke about it, but I just didn't remember. Mamma mia. That speaks volumes to me. So for people wanting to embark on this journey, you said they don't need to go through insanity. There's other ways to do it. But if there were 3 steps, I don't know why I keep picking in numbers, but hey, that's what's coming in, so that's what I'm asking you. So if there were 3 things, 3 steps that people could do, right, to start to step into this work. And I'm not talking about from the point of view of what you do. Because people might be watching this saying, well, what can I do? Right? I get a sense of what you're saying. I don't need to read your report. I would still love to, but I don't need to read it because I have a sense of what's going on. So what 3 things, if there were 3 things, could I do to start my way on the journey of contribution as opposed to be part of the problem?
So, 3 things. First of all, like, there's need to be willingness. Know your why. Know why you want to do it. Why you want to do like. But I think ultimately, if you're really honest about what's taking place on this planet and what is at stake, you will want to do it. I mean, unless you want to share responsibility for, you know, potentially a civilization collapse, potentially the destruction of our future. I don't think anybody wants to have that on their conscience. So the first is to be clear on your why, know why you want to do it. The second is to be aware of traps, because when we go on that journey, there are potential traps, you know, ego traps, I would say, you know, like the savior complex, etc., etc., the prophet complex. So, like, remember that this is a humbling journey, not an ego trip. That's number 2. And then number 3, be ready for an inward journey, because what this is about, ultimately, it's about healing past traumas, overcoming the fears that are associated with them, and dissolving the beliefs, whether they are conscious or not, that have been put on top of it. So, yeah, be ready for that inward journey, but if you do that journey, you'll access what I consider key to be part of the solution, which is you'll access and you'll develop, by the way. So these 3 elements: self-knowledge, sense-making, and future design.
Love it. So then, going through this journey, right, as it's easier said than done, right? So we have the destination and we have the journey, and quite often we may get to the understanding that the journey and what you learn along the way may be more important than the destination, right? So, in other words, focusing on the process, not necessarily the outcome. Okay, though the outcome comes as a result of the process, right? So, if there was any collateral, now not collateral damage, but any collateral greatness that has come out of this whole experience thus far for you, what would they be?
There's a term for it, scientific term. It's called post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth.
Yes. Okay. So, I said that as a species we are collectively traumatized by a very rough past, right? And we are speaking about intergenerational ancestral traumas, you know, for the big part of it, that are so ubiquitous that their impact is normalized. We don't even see it, right? No, many people think that trauma is a curse, right? Oh, I got traumatized, poor me, I'm a victim, you know, of my life. No. Trauma is not a curse. Trauma is a part of yourself that has been wounded, that has been separated from you, that is waiting to be reintegrated. And with that part comes the lesson that you're supposed to learn, right? So basically there is so much potential for consciousness expansion in the process of individual and collective trauma healing. And out of this consciousness expansions comes all the greatness that I was mentioning before.
I was on the inside, I was laughing. On the outside, I'm laughing too, because I was reminded of this just a few days ago, actually, and it's just popped back in. Wow. Oh, that's not a story for another day. So then, of these 7 benchmarks, or these 7 subjects that you mentioned about your study of somebody coming into it, right? So what, by the way, we'll take questions in a second for anyone who wants to ask questions. So of these 7 destination points, let's call them that for now, what do you think is the most important one to start with? Because 7 can be overwhelming for people to say, oh man, there's a lot of information in there, right? So if you had to choose 1 or 2, the first 1 or 2 steps to start with, or even 3 if you like, which 1, 2, or 3 would they be, and why?
That's a complicated question, because it will depend on who you are and where you are on your journey, right? Let me give you an example. If you're an activist, you've been following Greta Thunberg and you're freaking out about climate change, and you don't know what to do, right? And you're like, we need to do something. Like I don't know what to do, and just okay, all right. So if you're that type of person, maybe you want to start with deepening your understanding of the crisis of sustainability, having a bit more of a holistic point of view and a bit less catastrophic as well, right? So that will be your starting point. If you're somebody who's suffering from trauma and you're really in your healing journey, then maybe you want to expand, and the first knowledge that you want to access is the access of collective trauma. Like, oh, I'm not the only one suffering of trauma. Actually, the whole of humanity is affected by it, although not everybody is aware of it. It's just that I'm aware of it, and my journey of healing has already started. So there's not one response fits all. There's more like follow your intuition and try to see what is your call, where you want to start with. And if you don't, well, you can start anywhere. It's all getting in the same direction anyway. Wherever your starting point is the same journey.
What I was reminded of, right, from what you said, was this understanding that, now you mentioned trauma, what I mentioned, and there's stuff for me to let go of and imbibe as well. But the point is that, life is putting in your face what it is you need to focus on now. And in many ways that may present as a trauma, as a problem, as a catastrophe, as something. But ultimately, your life's trying to say, hey, you might want to start to look here, because this thing, whatever it is in front of you, you haven't dealt with, right? And for you to become a whole person, the 2.0 version of yourself, you may want to start to look there. So I can, that's what comes up.
So really like that you said that, because, just expanding on that, it's like, that's exactly what the global crisis of sustainability is showing us. It's like, hey, humanity, the stuff you haven't dealt with, and it's time to deal with it. Because otherwise you're going to go ahead of far more pain and far more troubles than if you really look at it. So, this is this global challenge of sustainability that we face is an opportunity to deal with these wounded parts of ourselves. What Jung will call the shadow, the individual and collective shadow. So, it's there's an opportunity within the challenge, and that's what we are invited to take, to see, and to seize. Because again, on the other side is everything we've been talking about.
All right, last question for me, sort of, and then we'll go to any questions here. We've got a microphone and we'll come straight to you. So what qualities do you think were being called into you for those 4 times that you spent in and out? of, I don't know what you refer to it as, in and out of
psychiatric hospital, you know.
psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, you know, they were not. They were a bit dangerous, right? But I think it was selflessness. It's like I was at a point where, okay, I had a hint that I'm risking my sanity, but on the other side is what I'm looking for. It's the root cause of the problem and the solution, right? So I was like, okay, my life is not that important, right? If that can be the key for the human species to become sustainable, well, it's worth me risking my sanity and my life. So that's what kept going me. And also one thing simple is that, you know, when the information and when the process started, there was quickly a warning. It was like, okay, Ben, the door is open, you can go in that other side. But to go there, you must be ready for insanity and death. So I kind of was warned before I went into exploring these things that was risk-taking. So when they put me in a psychiatric hospital and I realized, oh damn, you know, I went a little bit like too much. At first I got scared, but then I was like, wait a minute, I was told before I started that journey that, you know, insanity was part of the risk, and so do I want to stop now? And I was like, well, no, you know, that's too much at stake. I want to continue, you know, I want to go all the way and risk it all. So I did, and so basically I didn't listen to the psychiatrists, and my friends and family were like, Benjamin, you're sick, you know, take your medication and stop this. I was just like, no, like there's something there, and I want to know what it is. And so I went back into this state, alternate state of consciousness, what is being referred as spiritual emergencies. And ultimately, I made it through. No, I didn't make it through because I was that good. I made it through because, you know, I met the right people who were like, okay, we understand what's happening to you, and, you know, like you need help, but not psychiatric help. Help of people who, you know, who have who know how to work with these things.
Somebody going through this right now, right? So what would you tell them? Because, not tell them, it's the wrong word, advise. So you went through this 4 times, right? So you were determined. Let's put it that way. You were determined, or you weren't listening, either one. But someone finding themselves in this position now, how would you guide them through so they don't need to go through necessarily that experience 4 times?
Yeah. So, you know, first I will explain them that them having massive emotional release and thoughts that are considered crazy by our society and pathologized is part of their process. Okay. So they should not freak out, but they should also not act upon these thoughts and emotions. Right? So they should understand that, okay, society won't understand that. And by the way, like we could go there, but we live in a pathological society, right? So society is pathological and doesn't understand its pathology and won't understand what you're going through because it doesn't recognize it. So don't try to get external validation or understanding by people who don't understand that. What you're going through emotionally and mentally is a release, right? Now, when you're going through this release, don't act upon every impulse that you have, if possible. You know, put yourself in a safe space, if possible, with people who can secure you, help you, and trust the process. And then, because very often, you know, the issues that happen, they are quite simple ultimately. If I was to like we could, do you want me to explain it quickly? Please. So one of the big issues that we have mentally is that we're a bit confused about dimensions. Right? Because we live in a multidimensional reality, and particularly there's 2 dimensions that coexist. The dimension of truth and reality, and the dimension of belief and perceptions of reality. Right? We humans, we are in the dimension of beliefs and perception of reality. Right? And that dimension is relative, subjective, and limited. And that other dimension of truth and reality, it's objective, absolute, and infinite, right? The problem is that we haven't realized that. So we tend to think that our limited, relative, subjective belief and perspective are the truth and reality. And so when you go in a crisis, you go really into that. I get like new information. It's like, wow, I got the whole truth, right? And I got to tell everyone. And then people freak out, and then we freak out because people freak out, and then we create vicious cycle, and it's a big chaos. So just chill. Whatever new downloads you get, it's okay. You know, like it's new information. Take the time to digest it. Don't have an ego trip thinking that you're the new prophet, the new whatever, right? Just another human beings connected to a higher level of consciousness. And that's cool. It's good news. But be chill, because it's going to release a lot of trapped emotions and a lot of thoughts. That make sense?
I don't think it needs to. Because, part of this...
I hope it does, Steve.
No, but part of this is about your truth, right? And it will connect with whoever needs to connect with it, right? So, but yes, I do get it. So, questions. So, any questions, just raise your hand. And we've got a microphone here. And while we find a person called Adrian, who I know has got questions, I just want to, so if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Benjamin over here from New World Together. And, we're going through a deep journey tonight on what it is of the human condition or programming that needs to be, let's say, acknowledged for us to realize that we also hold the solution and the keys to the future of humanity as well. Yeah.
Can I say something about that?
Please
because,
do.
by the way, one thing I want to say as well is that what's causing the crisis of sustainability that we have is a primal survival instinct that is out of place in our times, and that is deep-rooted in our bodies because it's deep-rooted in the collective traumas, the collective fears, the collective belief of our ancestors. It's not human nature. It's something that we can integrate and make conscious and expand upon. So I just want to repeat that, because if there is one thing you need to take from that, is this finding. And what does that mean is that the solution to our problem is not outside of us. Ultimately, it's inside of us. If we just bet on technology to save our problems, we're going to make them worse, because we are not going to deal with this primal instinct, and the more we put technology on it, the more its destructive aspect will become out of control, right? So this is really, really what I want to insist on. The problem and the solution are inside of us. Technology can support our process, is welcome, but it cannot be the only solution.
Nice.
Okay.
Love it.
So.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly clearly.
Yes.
Very good. Ben, I love your work. I've been following the stuff you've been doing for years, so I want to commend you for continuing the work. My question relates to what you were saying earlier about perception and beliefs versus the ultimate truth. I think a lot of what we perceive is fed to us in the media, right? So my question is, in today's mainstream media, what is the message that you find that is most misleading? And as an extension to that question, do you think the media outlets know that it's misleading? And if they do, who does it benefit to continue peddling that misinformation?
Okay. Thank you for these very good questions. I'm gonna. There's a few levels to that, so I'm gonna try to respond to it. I think the medias do what systems of power have been doing until now, which is manipulation through fear, right? And that works very well when people are still traumatized, cut from their conscious self, and dominated by their primal survival instinct, right? The primal survival instinct is predictable, it's easy to manipulate, and fear is the way. So that's what they do, right? And so that's what's a little bit problematic, is that they speak about problems, but without giving sense making, without allowing people to make sense of what's happening. Instead, perpetuating division, by bringing experts that disagree with each other and make it seem that, okay, there's no way out of this, it's just too complicated, right? I'm summarizing, there's much more to that. I want to go to the second part of your question.
Before you go to that, when you say they, like who are you referring to when you say?
Well, I mean people who are obviously in charge of the media. It's a collective. There's different medias after. I don't put everybody in the same box. Journey medias also have a political agenda. There are some that are pushing a left-wing agenda, some that are pushing right-wing agenda. Unfortunately, I would say they lack objectivity because they are more interested into being right than into being objective, right? And therefore, I don't see that they lie too much, but I see that they present elements of reality that support their agenda. The question was, are they doing it deliberately? I don't think so, interestingly enough. I don't think so. I think we are facing unconscious mechanism of denial, right? What I've seen being around people like that is they really believe that their view is the truth and that that's what should be pushed because that's what's best. Very often what I've noticed, so studying about unconscious mechanism, what I've noticed personally in myself, and I still have to be mindful, is that my ego will create belief systems to support my unconscious agenda. And if I'm not paying attention that, wow, actually this belief is actually not true, it's just my ego who's trying to defend my interest, I can speak upon it. So I think that this is what's happening with these people. Like they just, having their belief systems that fit their agenda, and that's what they are pushing. And they think that they are right, and they think that other people should follow them. No, of course, there is big interest behind it. And that's the interest of those who benefit from that way of functioning. They have no interest in challenging the status quo. They have no interest in sharing information that will challenge the status quo. Are they, again, doing it consciously? I don't think so. Okay? Because if they were doing it consciously, it means that they will know that this is taking us on the verge of disaster, all of us, including them, and they don't care. I don't think they are suicidal. I think that they are just unconscious and in denial, like all of us to some degree. And I strongly believe that because if you think about the elite in power right now, speaking about the top of the pyramid, and we are speaking about an unsustainable pyramid, a pyramid that is going to collapse, I mean, those who should worry the most is those who are on top of it, because they are the ones who are going to fall from the highest position. But now, to which extent they are conscious or unconscious, this is really a question. I can also say something, it's like a lot of people do really nasty things, but generally what they have is a belief system to justify the nasty things that they are doing. Such a belief system will be, well, human nature is evil, right? We have to do what it takes to put it under control. I'm not a bad person. I'm just doing what's best dealing with the evil species, right? So if we don't deal with these belief systems, which are at the core of views that are destructive and patterns that are destructive, and dealing with the belief system means dealing with the fear and traumas behind it, it's going to be very hard to address it. And so I wouldn't demonize anyone. I think we all have our shadow work to do. I think the first step is being aware of this mechanism and of the fact that they are not serving anyone anymore, and that we need to address them individually first and then collectively.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
They're thinking.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, it's a deep subject.
Tonight is very deep. But the interesting thing is that it creates a vortex. So every week at Speak Up Monday, this is number 198, right, as I mentioned before. Each one has been different. Different energy, different vortex, different understanding, different outcomes and insights. But those who are magnetized to it are those who, in a way, it's a bit like a birthday party, right? You start off inviting everybody, and the ones who show up are the ones in the way you're supposed to. It's a bit like this. So you don't ever have to worry about going too far or whatever, because the people who are on that frequency will find it anyway. So question, yeah.
Yes. So Benjamin, yeah, thank you very much for sharing, and I absolutely get it because I've also gone through, various part of my life, gone through some of those challenges. Because I was in a corporate world as well, and I had to switch out because it was just getting too much for me, and I think it's like, recently, I mean, I think a lot of people are going through that trauma, right? Nothing is sustainable, right? A lot of the businesses has collapsed. Everything has changed, right? We are going through a very vulnerable time in a different kind of ways. Some are more, able to take the pressure and then surviving, and some are really going through really, really hard time, really at the rock bottom and trying to come up again. A lot of people going through all sorts of all the difference, including myself. Like whatever the business model that we had in the past is not working anymore. Whatever the income that we had is, we don't have it anymore. And that we are trying to reinvent ourselves to be able to make sense in this new world, right? So I think there are a lot of things that we are trying to do right now. What is the way? One of the things maybe I just share a little bit more is that what I see is that we are seeing the worst of human nature, or the humanities at the moment, right? I don't see compassion. That's really the shocking thing, is that in a time of difficulties, how come we not seeing compassion? And that's kind of breaks my heart. Yeah. So my question will be that how can we actually, compassion is like, I think it's that very important goodness of human being, right? Humanity is about compassion, in my opinion. And how can we actually reconnect again so that we can be that, have the goodness again?
So there are many ways to that. I will give you, because I'm quite an intellectual person, so I will choose the intellectual way. Compassion, empathy. First of all, what I discovered in my journey is that a world in which we are all selfish is not sustainable, and is bringing us, it leads us to destroy the commons and therefore destroy ourselves. So basically, it means that selfishness is not even rational, because it ends up playing against our own interest, right? So first, just like that, just being like, out of selfishness, I can actually start thinking that actually I need to take care about, just only me, but also others around me, right? Because it's not, otherwise we are doomed, right? So that's one thing. Second is but simply the when we realize that human nature is not evil, but it's deeply wounded, it opens a new window, right? It's like, because today the dominant beliefs is more that we are evil. I mean, if we are, and most people, I mean, when their level of self-esteem is really low. They don't see themselves as, they don't see the light in themselves, they don't see the light in others. And when you don't see that, it's very hard to have compassion, because all you see is a jungle on which you got to survive, and the way to survive is to not have compassion, right? So this is a false belief, as far as I'm concerned. It's a false myth, and it's time to address it, right? And then last, but the last one is to, once you have that understanding and you realize why humans are the way they are, and therefore the society in which we live is the way it is, then you can start being part of the solution. Because you're like, okay, the world is what it is and it's lacking compassion, but if it's lacking compassion, then it's part of my responsibility to bring more compassion. And the best way to do it is to do it in your own way, right? The way that vibrate for you, that resonate with you, right? What makes you feel good about yourself, and there's so many ways, right? And you don't have to, nobody has to save the world. Like, we just do our part. And when we do our part, we do what makes us feel good about ourselves. And if we all do that, there's a long way we can go together, right? And knowing that, this is a journey. There's no quick fix. No, we're going to be into this together, one way or the other. And so we all do our best and let the universe do the rest.
Thank you.
You know, what I love about what you just said, there's quite a few things to love, but the one that popped out, so the way I would quickly describe it, give you a chance to have some water, maybe get a man some more water. He's like, I need water. I'm thirsty. Help me, Lord. Help me. So maybe not quite like that. So it's this thing about the clock, right? So this clock, 1 to 12. So 1 to 2 is like, this is what I know that I know. My name, where I'm from, that I'm happy, that I'm sad, and so on. And then 2 to 4 is like, this is the stuff that I don't know that I don't know. Sorry, correction, the stuff that I know that I don't know. Thank you. This could be that rocket goes up to the moon. I don't know how it gets there, but I know it gets up there, but I don't know how. And the last one, which I kind of spoiled, is like 4 to 12, right? Which is what I don't know that I don't know. This is the area of insights, of programming, of subconscious mind, unconscious, all of that area, right? So the insight that I just got from what you just said, a few days ago I was talking to my partner Marina, and I see myself as a person who's very empathetic, and history and all the rest of that. Those who know my story will know the story. If you don't, that's okay. But what I found, right, was that people that I feel have wronged me in some way, shape or form was the guy I felt that we were doing this business transaction, this deal, right? I gave him a lot of my time and energy, and it turns out that I felt used, right? That's the bottom line. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. That's what I felt. So in my mind, like, I was there and I was like, you know what? I didn't want the best for this guy. So I saw him, and through kind of slightly clenched teeth, I was like, ew. Itchy nose him actually. And it's pissing me off because, like, fuck, you know, I gave this guy da-da-da-da-da, and like all he did was use what I gave and gave nothing back. And like, looks like he didn't even have the feeling or thought about it, and I just felt used. So once the pity party kind of subsides, you know, like, obviously it's about, you know, myself. So where in my life have I felt used? Where in my life have I... So this awareness of it's got nothing to do with him. It's all to do with me, right? And basically going back, acknowledging, having awareness of where that pain point, where that wounding, be it generational or otherwise, and letting that rise to the surface from the dark place, which is not a bad thing. When I say dark and light, I'm not referring to good or bad at all, but just that which I don't realize, that I don't know, rising to the, oh, I've just seen something, isn't that interesting? And allowing that to play out and show me why it's there. Acknowledging it and letting it be and letting it pass without judgment, then it's internalized, it's part of, it's been imbibed, it's embodied within me, and I don't feel the need for that anymore. So what you just said kind of reminded me of like another way in, which was, you know, it's for me to act in that way is unsustainable. Ding! A light just went on, right? Is unsustainable, because if I were to keep doing that, all I'm doing is, you know, you mentioned the pyramid, the top of the pyramid. If they've got the most to lose because they've got the furthest to drop. So I'm up here, you know, having my pity party, realizing that, oh, that's right, that's right. I forgot. I didn't know that actually, you know, by me being that way is literally just cutting off my own nose to spite my face. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you. And thank you for the insight as well. And one thing I forgot to mention, I think is really key, is starting with compassion for ourselves, right? Because we also have our shadow, our darkness, and not to demonize it, just, you know, part of ourselves, all survival instinct. Recently, I realized that I was part of myself that were wishing really mean things to people who are good, simply because unconsciously I was considering them as competitors, and some kind of really archaic survival instinct was nurturing the belief that I should get rid of my competitors, you know.
Yeah.
So, trust me, like I used to repress these kind of things because I'm like, no, not me, that's not me, right? But no, I'm like, I let it burst. I'm like, oh yeah, right, you know, that's just my primal survival instinct, you know, it's not me, and I can give it compassion and reintegrate it because that's not who I am. So self-compassion is really like the first part.
Beautiful, man. Nice.
Thank you.
So in these 4 years that you've been dedicated to this project, you've done a couple of things. Some have worked, some didn't work. So what have you done that worked, that moved you towards closer to your purpose and to your vision, and something that you did, but it didn't work as you were expecting?
I'm going to start with the thing that didn't work.
Okay.
So I was trying to raise people awareness about global unsustainability. So I was like, are you aware this is taking place?
I remember that.
So he was one of them, right? So we'll come and be like, have you seen the statistics on biodiversity loss? Have you seen what's happening with climate change? Have you seen like the amount to which extent we've destroyed, the planetary ecosystems and the overconsumption of resources and the pollution, plus inequalities and financial debts, and people would just be like completely overwhelmed. Right? I was just like, yeah, guys, let's do something about it. And I was having an audience that was just like numbed, devastated. It's like these people, they were coming out of a session with me. They had two options: depression or denial. Right? So that didn't work. But I thought I was doing something like, yeah, raise awareness. No, I was sending people to depression or reinforcing their denial.
But you know the thing, so I met, for those of you who didn't see it earlier on, so two years ago, roughly, I met this beautiful man, and we were speaking about the anger, and he hit me with exactly those questions at Tomorrow Gallery next to the skate park. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? And I was like, though I didn't have any of the denial or any of that, what I saw was a passionate guy, and I thought, does he realize that this is the worst, like, this is like the worst, like, I'm going to change your mind ever. It's like the worst sales pitch I've ever heard. And that's what made me hang around, because I was like, I see the passion, I see the goodness in this guy, right? And I let him have this thing that he feels compelled to do, and then we'll have a chat afterwards, and we did. But anyway, so I just want to put that in that frame. I love it.
And by the way, that's what being truthful grant me, because if I had repressed that and say I would not have let it come out, I would not have learned from it, and I wouldn't be where I am today, right? Because this angry Benjamin that bumped into the wall is the one that understood what was the wall made of, and what was it doing wrong. So I don't see that as a bad thing, as it was part of my journey and my learning process. Now that I have learned that, you don't need to do the same mistake, right? But by the way, this is also, Greta Thunberg is doing it, but she tends to focus just on climate change and biodiversity loss. She doesn't add up all the other things, right? But yeah, it doesn't really work. What works is to take people on the journey and to empower them in the journey, right? To really allow them to connect the dots in a way that they can see that it's not that difficult to make a difference, that you don't have to take all that weight on your shoulders, and that at every single moment of your life, you can make different choices that have an impact and create another world. And you can do it without pressure, with the right knowledge, with the right tools, the right experience. And you can do it in a way that's even fun, because ultimately, what we are going through is an adventure. This is game on. Wow, we have to resolve a global challenge of sustainability, right? And we know how to fight each other and how to compete, but we don't know how to collaborate and how to be at peace. Yet this is what we now need to do to survive. Before, we had to fight each other to survive. Now we have to learn to live together to survive. And so that's game on. And we are in the game together. And so this is an adventure, and a beautiful adventure, because of the potential that can come out of it, individually and collectively. So that's what I do now, taking people on the journey and making them feel empowered rather than bombarding them with, oh no, you're aware about what's the issue of global sustainability, but you're completely smashed, right? Because you're not, because we are not emotionally, most people are not emotionally and mentally mature enough to deal with this, and not everybody wants to go to the psychiatric hospital to be able to deal with it.
Yeah. the thing about this, it's a Q&A, right? But it's not necessarily about answering the question. It's about what is triggered by the question. Now, having said that, his question was, what thing didn't work, which I think you gave, and what thing did? So what did work?
So what work is to take people on a journey. Like, so we're talking about, like, 3 days training, and giving the knowledge, not being angry, not being overwhelmed, not being like, not coming with a catastrophic energy, like we are in this, not making people feel at ease, making them feel like, we can deal with this issue and without being overwhelmed and without being depressed, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and this can be a beautiful journey. That works.
Can I ask another question?
Of course, yeah, secondary backup. No.
Can you give me an example of someone that came to you, or I mean, you work with that person, and she was like, she didn't see what you were saying, and suddenly she saw. So what happened? Can you a concrete example?
So for example, I did an online class with a group. We had 5 sessions together. It was about 20 people that I did seriously. And what came out is amazing. The group is, all the people are regularly communicating with each other, giving each other ideas, also being able to share their frustrations. Because we are eating like the old ways that are unsustainable. They are deep rooted in our society, and so there is hope, there is commitment, and people now see a path. Means that I am with people who can totally face what's happening in the world, see the journey through, and that are together in the journey and regularly supporting each other, reminding each other that you are not alone. We are here. And we all see the same thing. And so that's really important, because at the beginning of my journey, notably, I was alone. That was difficult.
And anymore? You good? So what would be good, we're reaching towards, we could talk for hours, I know, but we're reaching towards the end, we're not at the end yet. So maybe what would be great for those people who may be watching now or just tuned in on IG, Instagram, and wondering what the hell is going on, this guy with consciousness written over his t-shirt, what's going on? So the study that you did, right, if you could let people know the name of it and the importance of it and where to find it pretty soon.
So our research, the whole research paper is called Achieving Global Sustainability. There are 7 modules that I have the summary of the research, but I'm still compiling all of it, and it's going to take me time. It's probably going to be a book out of it, so you have to allow me a bit more time to put all of this together. It's a lot of knowledge. But if you want to access it, you can contact us through our website. I'm very happy to share the summary as it is right now, and to be in touch if you want to know more and participate in some of the trainings that we are putting through. We're also teaching at a school right now. So I just want to say that teenagers get it, and they feel really empowered and excited about it. So I think that there's it's not. Many people will feel that looks like so complicated, but it's much more simple than we think. It's just complicated because it's deep, and it brings us back to part of ourselves that we've been suppressing and denying for a long time. So yeah, you can definitely get in touch with us, and I'm more than happy to share what we have. And you are welcome also to join our trainings as soon as they are ready. We have also events on a regular basis. So check us up and connect to our website.
And then you've also got, was it New World Together on Instagram?
Yeah, we have we have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, although I have to say this is not our priority at the moment. But we are definitely there, and you can find some content. But the best is to get to us through our website if you really want to go into this.
And okay. What kind of future would you like to see?
So the future toward which I'm working is a future in which we live in harmony with ourselves in the first place and one another. with one another, with our natural environment, and with the law of the universe. That's what a sustainable species will be. So it's what I call it is for us to collectively become self-conscious, to reintegrate our creative power, and to together determine our future, and to become what I call humankind. This stage I think was still mankind, a kind of a patriarchal species driven by its survival instinct. And what I want to see is the birth of humankind, a self-conscious, symbiotic, and thriving species. And united on Earth, I hope soon we will realize that the planet we share in common is more important than the countries dividing us. And that changed a lot of the priorities that we have at the moment, notably that our leaders have. So I hope soon we recognize that we share much more in common what we share in common is more important than what divides us.
There's two things that come up. One is a monk called Dandapani, right? And check him out, right? Dandapani. So exactly, it's phonetic. So Dandapani, okay? So he had this thing. It's about the mind and awareness. I think it's brilliant, right? So the mind is a bit like a map. Hate, love, joy, fear, rage. I've mentioned love already, right? Envy, suicidal thoughts, whatever it might be, is like areas on the mind, like a map. Awareness is like a ball or a light globe, right? Which travels around the map of the mind. This is your awareness. Wherever it stops, in whichever part of the map, which is your mind, that area of the mind illuminates. And you experience or draw into your consciousness experiences that back that up. So if you fall into or focus in the love area of this map, love lights up. And what you attract is more love into your life. If it moves around to envy, then the envy side of your brain, mind, right, lights up, and that's what you draw into your consciousness, your awareness. So then, at the end of the day, even though it is also, right, about what life is showing to you, it's not like I'm going to run away. I'm not going to think about it, and it's not there. I'm not saying that. But if whatever you're kind of going through obviously needs to be embodied and integrated, but also it's about where you're putting your attention. And that's what I love about it. The simplicity of it is that, well, where are you putting your attention? Where are you putting your focus? And because whatever that is, that's what you're creating, sucking, drawing as a vortex towards you. That one comes up, which I think is phenomenal. The other thing that comes up is, so we've spent the last hour and a half, whatever it's been, 2 hours, who knows. It can be interesting sometimes because there's so many things that come up. And the brain is trying to grab onto it, right? Sometimes you write notes, which is awesome. But what I found is a really good thing to do is say, if there was one thing which I got from tonight, one thing that was an insight for me, in other words, something that was new, something which was maybe in that don't know that I don't know, or don't even know that I don't even know, right? Something in that area. So for me, what it was this, and it surprises me because my ego is like, yeah, but Rob, you know that already, right? You do, but it's like, well, maybe not.
But it's true.
Right, there you go. Is that interconnectedness of me, not only with this particular guy saying, hey, I don't want the best for you because you screwed me. Over here, sorry. It's not you, Adrian. He's right there. No, he's not. He's just behind the camera. Right, so what I'm actually doing is that not only am I chopping off my own nose to spite my face, as we say in English, but I'm also blocking abundance coming back to me as well. And so for what you just said, earlier on reminded me of that. So that's one of the things, which I'll take forward with me. So if you're watching here, either Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it might be, maybe ask yourself that question. What one thing, might be more for you guys, might be 2 or 3, but what one thing, let's put it like that, was new for you tonight that maybe created an insight? And just pay attention to it. The mind awareness, put your awareness there just for a day or so and see what pops up, see what comes in. I know there's more. What's coming up for you?
It's a very good question. I think a lot of things. For me, this is feels like the beginning of the journey, and I don't know. I see the potential. It's just amazing, right? The potential for impact, etc. So I think this is still a very early stage. I feel like a baby who's rediscovering everything, and that's still very clumsy in many aspects. But the future looks very bright. A bit scary also. We will see what comes. But definitely a research education platform in the first place, which I hope will become a research education institute.
Ooh, nice.
Potentially, what I would like to get is a consortium of researchers, like the IPCC, but not to study climate change, but to study human self-destructive patterns and how they can be changed, how they can be made sustainable. And so expanding on the knowledge that we already have and making it mainstream so that we become a self-aware, a trauma-aware species which has the necessary level of collective awareness and collective sense-making to start its regenerative transition. That's the caterpillar who's, ready to go into the cocoon to become a butterfly. So, me acting to catalyze that, doing my part, is what's coming. And that's an adventure, and it starts with that research education platform, and yeah.
So last two. So the first thing is that if people are watching you now and have got a good sense of who you are, why you do what you do, and in a way, that what I mentioned earlier on, right? For those who missed it, real quick, it's and you'll be surprised that it was Tai Lopez who said it. He got it from one of his mentors, which blew me away at first. Anyway, so what it is this. So quite often there's maybe 3 ways. So to know thyself, there's often 3 ways, and the first way is that we look inward, we meditate to know ourselves. That can be biased. We have our own cognitive biases that lead us to certain points of view about ourselves. Not saying it's wrong, but we have those biases, so we don't necessarily see the truth. Like when you look into a mirror, you don't actually see your reflection of how you are. It's distorted in some way, shape, or form. That's what a bias does, a cognitive bias. The second part is saying, well, to know thyself, maybe I'm going to ask somebody else. But quite often as human beings, we don't ask the person who will give us the hardest, like black and white answer, it's a bit too personal. We ask somebody who we know is a bit sympathetic to our cause, so we get the nice side of who we are, right? Not necessarily the truth. And the third measure is analysis over time through facts. So you look back through your life and you see those things. Maybe, like I've got kids, right? 5 and 7. One of them just literally, came out with this compassionate streak about her. Like she's going to become something that utilizes that superpower that she has. So as a parent, perhaps it's in my best interest to nurture that, because that's what she's naturally shown a gravitational pull towards. So when you look back over your life, what things have you seen that you're naturally gifted at, that just happened, that you just picked up like that and it seemed to flow, right? So we're looking back for that sort of analysis to get to this place of to know thyself, and then you focus on that. So, and what Benjamin was saying earlier on was like, it's a bit, it could be a mix of the 3. So, in closing, the way that we close Speak Up Monday is we ask the guest which is you, to maybe, and in about 2 minutes' time, to think about something that perhaps you'd like to reiterate, or it might be something that you haven't said before, or something that just pops in. And what I'd love you to include in that is, how can people contribute to you? You're a person who's giving a lot out. And as a person on a similar vibe and wavelength, quite often we kind of forget or don't realize that it's a two-way street. So we also need to learn to receive as well as to give. And that can be hardest sometimes. I can see you nodding. So if someone or some people want to contribute to you, how can they do that? And anything else that's left for you to say in about a minute and a half, right? Cool, so think about it. So for those of you watching now, if you like what you see or there's something that's being triggered, just maybe look at it over the next few days, see what comes up. If there's someone who you think, you know, would love to hear this right now, share it with them. Okay? If you want to join Speak Up Monday, this is episode number 198. So the last 3 years, we haven't missed a week. And it's always been about inspiration, right? Inspiration is caught, not taught. People inspire people. And actually, Adrian, just sitting over there, you're probably one of the first ones that we ever did 3 years ago in Life in Bali, in Tomorrow Gallery. That's right, when we started there. But every week we've done it, right? And maybe if you want to be on the show or there's something there that you feel you'd like to share, get in touch. Join Speak Up Monday, Speak Up, one word, Monday group on Facebook. Instagram is more of a bulletin, or just join me personally, Robert Ian Bonnick. All of the last 100 episodes have been filmed here at Tropical Nomad, which is our brother Itchy. And maybe Itchy can come and just end this one here because it's just about to run out of battery. So just end it. And so you've got that also. And just remember, tune in, come and be part of the studio audience, right? We're here 6:30 every Monday, and we film this live, so come and be part of this. Is there anything else? Yes, we have Speak Up Clubhouse tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Bali time, and we've got an incredible woman, a preacher from the US, who's got an incredible message. And then Wednesday, our replay is Kevin Lerbel, a German, has an incredible knack of financing and how to impact the education of the planet. Incredible guy. So, thank you, Itchy, Tropical Nomad, and the crew. Love you guys, always supporting us and putting us on the right foot and making this whole experience seamless. So thank you very much. And then Brother Ben, mate, it's been 1.5 years since you're last on the show. And man, like, I'm so happy and proud of what you've achieved and the person that you are. And it feels like you're becoming more of who you were supposed to be, which is phenomenal, brother. So man, over to you to see us out.
Thank you, Robert. I will start with the more simple question for me. What I want to add. I wanted to give you some additional knowledge about this primal survival instinct. We're talking about to demystify it, because we haven't really talked. I haven't really tell what is it really about. I tell you, it's about three. It's very simple, actually. That's why I want to share it for those who will listen. So survival instinct is about a response to a threat, right? And what are the 3 threats that have been shared by all humanity? The threat of hostility, predator, rivals, illnesses. The threat of scarcity, famine, severe deprivation, not having the resources we need to survive. And the threat of separation, because not being able to have a group, not being able to have a tribe, we are social animals. We don't thrive by ourselves. And so our primal survival instinct is turning around these 3 threats. Threat of hostility, the primal survival response to dominate and control the environment, to secure it. Threat of scarcity, to extract and accumulate resources. Threat of separation, to seek for external validation. The problem is that when we are dominantly trying to control and dominate our environment, we end up having power struggles. By the way, see the response to the COVID, what is it? Threat of hostility, control, right? So we end up having power struggle conflicts. What do conflicts do? They perpetuate the threat of hostility. And so we end up unconsciously locked in a vicious cycle. Same thing happened with the threat of scarcity. I'm afraid not having enough, so I'm going to hoard resources. And as a result, we overconsume the resources of the planet. We have plenty, but some still don't have enough. Famine is still there, extreme poverty is still there. And so the threat of scarcity is being perpetuated. And so we are locked in another vicious cycle. And then last but not least, the threat of separation. I'm not going to be myself. I'm going to be what others want me to be. And I'm going to reject difference because it's a threat. And so that perpetuates the status quo and the marginalization of difference, and therefore the threat of separation. And so it's as simple as that. We are locked in vicious cycles that we don't know of. Of course, they are deep-rooted in trauma. And so to break the vicious cycle, the game is to make Earth a safe space where you don't need to fear being attacked by others. You don't need to fear not being able to feed yourself or your children, and you don't need to fear expressing yourself and being marginalized and persecuted. So that's, not rocket science. I think I teach children that, and they understand. So I think adults will do. And so they also understand that how we respond right now, how do we deal with our problems doesn't work, right? We're just re-traumatizing ourselves and perpetuating the threat that we are trying to address. Wow. That was the one I wanted to say. Yeah, it's easy. And so we can fix this easy if we understand it together, right?
That's phenomenal, brother. That is something which, even though you downplay it in a way and say that, I teach this to kids, but those three things, right, make so much sense to me. And I'm sure I'm not alone. So it would be incredible if you can either write that somewhere or write it to us. And we just those three things.
Oh, they are in our trainings, and we give much more detail.
Yeah.
So we give you much more insight, so it becomes so obvious, and you're like, oh my God, really? But we haven't noticed that? No, we are not that conscious about ourselves yet.
Wow. And what I asked you to do as a final one was, how can people contribute to you?
Well, there are different ways. I've done some online courses where you can access this knowledge. You can get in touch with us to take one of those. That's one way. Like it's one way to donate and also to get something back. There's a lot in these online courses. I have one that is automated, so you can do it at your own pace. And there's another one which is synchronized that I'm going to relaunch if you want to be in a group and want to have a group experience. Another way, if you are, it depends where you are, because right now I'm preparing trainings for NGOs, for example, so that they don't only do symptom treatment and then end up in competition with one another, right? Because an NGO fighting plastic and an NGO fighting overfishing or deforestation are basically in competition with one another to get fundings, right? And the aim is to come together, like, okay, let's recognize how these issues have common root cause that we can address together. So if you want to be, having, if you're working for an NGO, we are preparing trainings for you guys, so you can have access to that knowledge and use it. If you are in a business, likewise, come to us. We have trainings prepared for you. If you're a member of the government, it's the same, like it's time to speak with a new language. If you're just a change maker, a community leader, same, we have all these teachings ready, so you can take your journey, you can share them with the rest of the world. Trust me, if we all start to understand that, it will change everything, and it will make it much better. And it's not that difficult as you just saw, yeah. So. We are ready to provide. And beside that, if you're Jeff Bezos and you just spend $2 million against climate change, We just need 1 million to address the root cause of the problem. That would be largely enough. And you can spend 1.990 to tackle climate change, which is for us just a symptom. But we think that it's nice to try to fight the flu by making campaigns against running nose, but it would be better if we could diagnose the flu and have the proper medicine for it. Nice. Thank you.